Liana Voss was cleaning the 46th floor of the big Wexford Tower early in the morning. She thought she was alone. As she moved her fingers in the air, practicing sign language, a voice surprised her. "Excuse me, who taught you to sign like that?" the voice asked. It was strong and unexpected, like thunder in a quiet room. Liana froze. Her hands stopped moving in midair. She turned around slowly. Standing near the big window was a tall man in a nice suit. It was Darian Reese, the boss of a huge company called ClearLink Technologies. Liana had seen his face in magazines before, but never in real life. She gasped. Her heart started beating fast. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean anything. I was just practicing." Darian looked surprised but not angry. "No need to say sorry," he said. "Was that sign language?" Liana nodded. "Yes, sir. I didn't think anyone would see me. I was just practicing." "You're not in trouble, Liana," Darian said, reading her name from her badge. "I was just surprised. You looked really good at it." Liana was shocked. She didn't expect kind words. "I learned sign language from my little brother. He's deaf," Darian nodded. "It looked like you really knew what you were doing, not like someone just copying signs." Liana held onto her cleaning cart to steady herself. Then Darian said, "Would you come to my office tomorrow morning? Just for a few minutes. I think you can help us." "Your office?" Liana asked, surprised. "Yes," he said with a small smile. "Nothing scary, just a talk." Then he walked away and the hallway became quiet again. Liana stood there, not sure what had just happened. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. That evening at her small home, Liana sat at the kitchen table. She hadn't touched her dinner. Her brother Kai was on the couch with his math book. He noticed Liana was quiet and signed, "What happened today?" Liana signed back. "The CEO saw me signing. He talked to me. He asked me to come to his office tomorrow." Kai dropped his pencil. "What? You have to go?" "I don't know if I should," Liana said. "What if I get fired? What if he thinks I'm weird?" "You're not weird. You're amazing," Kai told her. "You learned a whole language for me. That's something to be proud of." Liana looked at her hands. They cleaned floors, folded towels, and sometimes signed in the air. Now someone had seen her. The next morning, Liana got ready carefully. She didn't have fancy clothes, but she ironed her uniform and tied her hair neatly. She wore a little lip balm. Her legs shook as she walked down the hallway. At 9:02 a.m., a hotel security officer found her. "Miss Voss, you're wanted on the 47th floor. Please come with me." Her heart pounded as the elevator went up. 41, 42, 43. Each number felt like a drum beat. When the doors opened, everything looked shiny and new. The air smelled clean. The carpet was soft. The receptionist looked up. "Miss Voss, go right in. Mr. Reese is waiting." Liana's feet moved, even though she was scared. She stood outside the door with golden letters, "Darian Reese, CEO." She raised her hand to knock. Then she thought of Kai. She took a deep breath and knocked. "Come in," said a voice. Liana stepped into the big office. It had windows showing the city and a big wooden desk. Behind the desk was a photo of a young Darian and an older man with hearing aids. They were smiling and signing. "Miss Voss," Darian said, standing up. He wore a white shirt with rolled sleeves. He didn't look scary now. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." Liana sat on the edge of the chair. Her back was straight and her hands were folded. She felt nervous. "I know this is surprising. Thanks for coming," Darian said. "How long have you been signing?" "Since I was 15, Liana answered. "My brother Kai lost his hearing after a bad fever. We couldn't afford help, so I learned sign language from books and videos. I even took classes." "Were you studying in college too?" "Yes, I wanted to become an interpreter for deaf kids, but my mom got breast cancer. I had to drop out to work." Darian nodded. "That must have been hard." "It wasn't really a choice," Liana said. "We needed money. Cleaning jobs were easier to get. No one asked too many questions." "Have you worked here long?" 4 years, she said. "Mostly morning shifts. I like when it's quiet." "You seem like someone who listens a lot." Then Darian leaned forward. Let me tell you why I asked you here. My company is working on a computer that can understand sign language. We're doing okay, but we still don't get the little details. It's hard for the computer to understand different ways people sign. Liana listened closely. We need someone who really knows sign language. We're not just the rules, but how real families use it. We need someone like you. Me? Liana asked. I'm not trained. I didn't finish school. I don't know tech. I don't even have a resume. But you live the language, Darian said. You learned it with love. That matters more than anything. Liana looked unsure. But I'm just a cleaner. Darian leaned back. Can I tell you something? When I was 5, I fell out of a tree. I hit my head and couldn't hear for almost 3 years. I was deaf until I was almost 8. Liana gasped. I was lucky, he said. Doctors fixed part of it. But I remember the silence, the loneliness. Yesterday when you signed, I remembered why I started this company. He took a card from his desk and handed it to her. This is my number. If you want to talk or try helping us, just call me. Liana stared at the card. It felt like glass. No pressure, Darian said. But just so you know, you're the most interesting person I've talked to all week. Liana smiled shyly. Thank you, Mr. Riss. Darian, he said. She stood up, holding the card. Thank you, Darian. As she walked out, the hallway didn't feel scary anymore. The soft carpet and shiny glass were still there, but something had changed. She went back to cleaning, but her thoughts stayed upstairs. That evening, Kai saw her at the table. The card was on the table. You didn't call him? He signed. I don't think I can, she said. What if I fail? What if I mess up? Kai held her hand. Then he signed. What if you don't? What if this is where you're supposed to be? Liana didn't answer. But later that night, lying in bed, she moved her fingers in the dark. She practiced old signs, letting them move freely again. A door had opened. She didn't know yet if she was brave enough to walk through it. The next day, Liana went to the ClearLink Technologies building. From outside, it didn't look special. But inside, it felt alive. People walked around with tablets, talking softly. Behind glass walls, teams were working on computers and big whiteboards. Liana held her bag tight. She wore clean shoes, a white shirt, dark pants, and her mom's borrowed sweater. She had called Darian that morning. It had been hard to say the words, but he replied right away, I'm glad. Can you come in today? Now Liana stood just inside the big sliding doors. The lady at the front desk smiled and waved her forward. Miss Voss, Mr. Riss is waiting for you upstairs. The elevator ride felt like something from a fancy movie. No broken buttons, no scratched walls. Everything looked shiny with soft silver and blue colors. When the doors opened, Liana stepped onto a floor that felt full of energy. There were no small cubicles. Instead, there were open desks, high tables, and big screens on the walls. Darian came from a hallway and smiled warmly. Liana, you made it. Barely, she whispered with a little laugh. My tummy tried to stop me all morning. I'm glad you came anyway, he said. He showed her the way as people in t-shirts and jeans looked at her curiously. Liana felt different right away. It wasn't just because of her skin or clothes. It was how she stood, like she didn't know if she belonged there. They walked into a medium-sized room with big monitors and a smooth table full of tablets. The screens showed videos of hands making sign language, paused in the middle of signing. This is the sandbox, Darian said, pulling out a chair for her. It's where we break things so we can learn how to build them better. Liana gave a small smile. That sounds familiar. Darian handed her a tablet. This is our AI system. It understands about 70% of formal sign language, but when people sign fast or use emotion, it doesn't work so well. Liana watched a short video. A woman signed quickly. I need help now, please. But the computer showed, need now. Confused. That's not just wrong, Liana said with a frown. That's dangerous. Exactly, Darian said. Liana leaned in closer. She watched the clip again and again. Her fingers started moving in the air while she thought, the system can't understand when signs are blended together, she said. And when someone moves fast, especially with strong feelings, the tracking gets confused. Darian's eyes lit up. You saw that? She nodded. It's showing the hand's location, not what the person means. It doesn't understand feelings. It doesn't understand what people are really trying to say. That, Darian said, tapping the screen, is why we need you. Liana swallowed hard. The words felt big, maybe too big. I don't know if I belong here. Darian looked at her seriously. Liana, you're already here. For the next 2 hours, Liana became someone she hadn't been in a long time. Her fear went away as she focused on the signs, the mistakes, and the missing human touch. She explained how her brother signed differently when he was scared or excited, how her neighborhood made up special signs that the computer would never understand without someone who lived it. She showed the difference between the signs for frustrated and confused. They looked similar but felt very different. Darian laughed. No wonder our testers say it doesn't feel right. Liana smiled for the first time that day without being nervous. It's like watching someone's lips move without hearing their voice. You get the words, but not the feeling. Later, Liana sat by the hallway window, sipping mint tea. Her heart was racing, not from fear, but from something warmer. She felt like she mattered. Then a woman Liana had never met walked up. She wore a sharp black suit and walked fast like she was important. You're Liana Voss? The woman asked. Yes, ma'am. I'm Vera Chen. I work with staffing and security at ClearLink. I heard you're helping with the ASL project. I'm trying, Liana said quietly. Vera gave a tight smile. I hope you know Mr. Riss doesn't trust people easily, and when he works with someone who doesn't have fancy school degrees, people notice. Liana didn't know what to say. I'm sure you're helping, Vera said, but be careful. Not every chance lasts forever. Then she walked away. Liana sat frozen. That voice, it sounded just like her dad's voice, the one that always told her to stop dreaming. She looked down at her tea. It tasted bitter now. When Darian came back and sat next to her, he noticed something was wrong. You okay? He asked. Liana nodded once. I'm just wondering if I'm in over my head. Darian leaned forward. Want to know something? My first job was stocking shelves at a little electronics store. I didn't know anything about tech. I just liked to learn. At night, I fixed old Walkmans to figure out how they worked. Liana smiled a little. I built this company, he said, because no one listened to me when I was deaf. They smiled and nodded, but they didn't really hear me. Now, I don't want to build anything that forgets what it feels like to be invisible. He looked at her. You know both sides, Liana. You've been someone no one listened to, and now you're helping others be heard. That's exactly what we need. Liana felt her throat get tight, but it wasn't fear. It was something that felt like she was finally being seen. Darian stood and held out his hand. Come on, we've got a lot more to break before we start building. Liana took his hand, and something inside her shifted. Just a little, but enough to start. 2 days later, Liana was back at work in the hotel. She stood by the shelves, folding towels. But her mind was still at ClearLink, with the big screens, the team, and the work that felt important. Up there, she had felt alive, like she was building something. Down here, under the flickering lights and the smell of cleaning spray, everything felt dull again. Liana? The voice made her jump. It was Vera Chen. She stood nearby in her neat gray blazer and high heels. She looked like she came from another planet. Yes, ma'am, Liana said, putting the towels down. I'd like a word. Liana followed her down the hall into a small meeting room. Vera closed the door with a quiet click. I heard you've been spending time at ClearLink, she said, still standing. Yes, Mr. Riss invited me to help with the ASL system. Vera nodded, but her face was hard to read. While the hotel supports dreams, we expect boundaries. What you do outside of work is your business, but if it affects your job, it becomes my business. Liana's chest tightened. I've made sure all my shifts are covered. I haven't been late or missed anything. I'm sure, Vera said sharply, But I've seen this before. Someone gets noticed, gets pulled into something big, and then crashes. They burn out, or they mess up. I'm doing my best. That might not be enough. People like Mr. Riss live in a different world. They make big promises and don't always understand what it's like down here. Liana spoke softly. I don't think he's like that. Vera stepped closer. Maybe he's not, but are you ready to be in rooms with people from fancy schools and big degrees? Are you ready to speak like you belong? Liana didn't know. No, but I want to try. Vera gave a tiny smile. Dreams are good, but knowing your limits is smart. Then she left. Liana sat there quiet. The light buzzed above her. She felt like a little girl again, being told to sit still and stop dreaming. She thought of Kai's proud face when she told him about Clearlink. What would he think now? She was still thinking when she heard a voice she knew well. Liana? It was Mrs. Ida Blythe, her supervisor. Mrs. Blythe had gray curls, strong eyes, and a kind heart. She had worked at the hotel for over 30 years. I've been looking all over for you, she said. Why are you sitting here like a folded paper fan? Liana looked up. Mrs. Chen said I don't belong in places like Clear Link, that I might embarrass myself. Mrs. Blythe raised her eyebrow. That woman has a whole closet full of worries. She said I'm just a hotel maid pretending. Mrs. Blythe sat down across from Liana. I've seen rich people cry over pillows. You think they're better at changing the world than you? Liana shook her head. You have something they don't. You know how to listen. You've lived in silence. That man asked you to help because he saw something real. But what if I fail? Liana whispered. Then you fail forward. You fall, you learn, and you try again. The only people who never fall are the ones too scared to try. Liana sat still. The heavy feeling was still there, but it wasn't all hers to carry anymore. That night at home, Liana sat on her bed. She held Darian's business card in one hand and her phone in the other. She dialed, then hung up. Dialed again. Stopped. From the hallway, Kai appeared with a half-eaten granola bar. You haven't called him yet, he signed. How do you know? You get this look, like you're fighting with a ghost. Liana laughed quietly. Kai sat next to her and signed slowly. Remember when I was scared to try out for robotics club? You told me the worst thing isn't getting rejected. It's never knowing what could have happened. Liana looked at him. He signed again. What's the worst thing that happens if you say yes? I fail, she said. I prove I'm not good enough, that I'm just pretending. And what's the worst thing if you say no? I stay here, folding towels, always wondering. He nudged her gently. Then what are you waiting for? Liana looked at the card one more time. She picked up the phone. This time she didn't hang up. It rang twice. Riss? Mr. Riss? It's Liana Voss. He paused. Then his voice became warm. Liana, I was hoping you'd call. I'd like to try, if the offer is still open. It absolutely is. Can you come in tomorrow afternoon? We'll talk about the next steps. Liana nodded, even though he couldn't see her. Yes. 3th. Perfect. And Liana, thank you for being brave enough to say yes. When she hung up, her hands were still shaking. But this time, she felt something new inside. Not confidence yet, but something close. Hope. She looked at Kai and signed one word. Tomorrow. The next day, Liana arrived at Clearlink's new office 15 minutes early. She stood across the street, looking at the glowing windows. Her hands were sweaty, but she stood tall. She didn't feel ready, but she decided to show up, and that mattered. Darian Riss greeted her at the elevator with a warm smile. Right on time. Liana smiled back. I walked around the block twice. Why? To stop myself from running away. Darian laughed. I get it. First day jitters. Let's use them for something good. They went into a big room. It was neat and full of computers. 3 engineers sat at a curved table. One was a blond man in his 30s. He nodded at Liana. Another was a younger woman with short curly hair. She smiled kindly. This is Joss, our machine learning expert, and Alara, one of our designers, Darian said. They'll work with you. Liana said hello and sat down. On the big screen, a video played. A teenager signed quickly. The caption said, She go doctor. Call now. Alara frowned. We're missing the full meaning. That's why Liana's here, Darian said. Liana, what's wrong with it? Liana leaned in. It's not just the words. Look at his eyebrows when he signs call mom. He's worried. The AI missed that. Joss said, the system only sees hand movements. It doesn't read faces yet. Then maybe it should, Darian replied. For the next hour, they watched videos. Liana explained small things. How hands moved, how people tilted their heads, what their faces said. Joss sometimes said, that's too hard, or we don't have that data. But even he looked curious. Liana showed them that real sign language isn't always like the textbooks. It's like English, Liana said. There's what we learn in school and how we talk at home. When the meeting ended, Liana felt surprised. She was enjoying it. She was not just watching, she was helping. Darian saw it too. You did great, he said. How do you feel? Like I might be useful, she said softly. You are. Before Liana could answer, a woman appeared. Darian, can I speak to you? Give me a second, he told Liana and followed her. The woman, Vera Chen, spoke in a quiet, firm voice. Liana couldn't hear her, but she saw her arms crossed and her jaw tight. Darian looked calm, but his eyebrows moved slightly. After a few minutes, he came back. Sorry about that, he said. Everything okay? Just some work stuff, he said. Come on, I want to show you something. He took her to a smaller room. Whiteboards and sticky notes were everywhere. A big screen showed a map. He sat and pointed to a chair. Liana, we're opening a permanent office in Chicago. We need people who understand both technology and people. Liana nodded. I want to offer you a job. Part-time at first if you want, with benefits. The title, ASL User Experience Consultant. You'll help us design, train people, and test tools. Liana blinked. I don't know what to say. Take your time, but know this. You've already proven yourself. Today wasn't a test. It was the beginning. She looked down. Mr. Riss, Darian, I heard what Miss Chen said. She doesn't think I belong. His face changed a little. I'll handle Vera. It's not just her, Liana said. People like me aren't taught to see ourselves as experts. Darian leaned forward. Maybe that's the world's problem, not yours. Liana didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. You're not here because I'm being nice. You're here because this work needs you. She let that sink in. It felt big, but part of her wanted to believe. That night, Liana cleaned a fancy hotel suite. She thought about the day, the feel of the tablet, Joss's surprise, her quiet pride. After work, she called Kai. Well, he asked. They offered me a real job, with a title. Kai shouted with joy. She had to pull the phone away. What did you say? He signed, smiling big. I said I need time. You've been ready, he signed. You just didn't know it. She laughed. Maybe. She looked up at the stars, barely visible. The air smelled like wet pavement and warm pretzels. Her world hadn't changed yet, but she had. The next weeks flew by. In the mornings, Liana still cleaned hotel rooms. She made beds, cleaned bathrooms, and left little note cards. But in the afternoons, she walked into a whole new world. At Clearlink, she wasn't just Liana the maid. She was Liana Voss, ASL User Experience Consultant. She even had a badge. It had her name printed in bold blue. She still felt shy wearing it. A part of her worried someone would say, that's not for you. But no one did. And each time she helped the AI learn something new, the doubts inside her got quieter. One afternoon, Alara waved her over. We used your ideas in the new update. Watch this. On the screen, a young woman signed, I'm scared. He didn't come home last night. Before, the AI had said, he late, worried. Now it said, I'm scared. He didn't come home last night. Even the voice had the right feeling. That's amazing, Liana whispered. We're at 87% emotional accuracy, Alara said. That's a huge jump. Joss nodded. Your help made this faster. Liana smiled. I'm just helping it speak like real people. Darian walked in and gave Liana a proud nod. It made her feel warm inside. But that night, she heard something upsetting. While finishing her shift, Liana walked past the break room. The door was open a little. She heard Vera Chen's voice. Mr. Reese can't seriously think this will work. She's just a housekeeper with no education or training. This looks bad. Another voice answered, Darian says she's done more than the last expert. That may be, Vera said, but we can't pull people from hotel hallways and make them consultants. Liana stepped back, heart pounding. She left before they saw her. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, she found Darian at ClearLink. He was drinking coffee and looking at his tablet. She walked up. Do you have a minute? He smiled, then noticed her serious face. Of course. They went into his office. She didn't sit. I heard what Vera said last night. She doesn't think I belong. Darian sighed. You weren't meant to hear that, but I understand. She's not wrong, Liana said. I didn't finish college. I don't know tech. I still clean rooms. Maybe I'm not good enough. Darian walked to the window. Liana, let me tell you something. I dropped out of college too. I couldn't afford it. I taught myself AI, just like you taught yourself ASL. She blinked. You didn't graduate? Nope. My first company failed. The second barely worked. The third one started in a basement with 2 friends. That's ClearLink. She was stunned. Degrees are important, he said, but heart, insight, and hard work matter too. You have all 3. But Vera says I have to choose. The hotel or ClearLink. Darian's jaw tightened. That's not her decision. She says it's against policy to be a hotel worker on guest floors and work for ClearLink. He was quiet for a moment, then he opened a drawer and took out an envelope. I was going to wait, he said, but now seems right. She opened it. It was a job offer. Title, Director of Human Experience, Sign Language Integration. Full-time, health insurance, stock options, salary, $90,000 a year. She gasped. That's more than triple what I make now. You earned it, Darian said. You've helped us more than anyone. I don't know if I'm ready. No one ever is. That's the secret. We learn by doing. Liana held the paper like it might disappear. I have to give the hotel 2 weeks' notice. He smiled. We can wait. She looked up and, for the first time, let herself believe it might be real. Later that night, Liana stood in her kitchen, reading an email out loud to her brother Kai. He listened with wide eyes, not believing what he heard. $90,000? He asked, shocked. Are you joking? Liana shook her head and tears filled her eyes. Are you going to take it? He asked. I said yes, Liana answered. Kai ran over and hugged her so tightly she could hardly breathe. You're not just helping people like me, he signed. You're showing the world what we can do. Liana held on to him. Her heart wasn't full of fear now. It was full of something special, pride, hope, and for the first time, a future that felt real, like something she built herself. 2 weeks later, Liana walked through the shiny marble lobby of ClearLink Technologies. She wasn't wearing her maid uniform anymore. She was now an executive. She wore a smart black blazer, neat pants, and a soft Blythe blouse her mother had sewn for job interviews long ago. That blouse was now Liana's lucky charm. Welcome back, Miss Voss, the security guard said with a smile. Liana smiled back and scanned her badge. The beep meant something new now. It meant she belonged. Alara waved from the development floor. Come here. You've got to see this. Liana followed her to a side room. 2 deaf people were testing the ASL to voice interface. One person signed a whole conversation, and the computer translated it with a voice that sounded almost like a real person. Liana watched, then signed a correction to the system, making it better. That change you made last week about emotional words? Alara pointed at the screen. It's working. 93% right. Liana smiled, but her fingers trembled. That's amazing. But her smile faded. She saw Vera Chen watching her through the glass wall. Vera's arms were crossed. Her eyes were cold. They stared at each other for a moment. Then Vera turned away. Later that day, Liana went to a department meeting. She was early, like always, and sat at the back. People arrived. Darian, Alara, Joss, and 2 HR workers. Then a new person entered. He was a tall man in a gray suit with salt and pepper hair. This is Cyrus Vale, Darian said. He's the new compliance officer. He's here to help us prepare for working with the government. Cyrus gave a small smile. Nice to meet you. During the meeting, Liana noticed Cyrus kept looking at her whenever they talked about sign language. His looks weren't mean, but they were careful, like he was thinking hard. When Darian mentioned Liana's promotion, Cyrus shifted in his seat and wrote something in a notebook. After the meeting, Liana tried to leave quietly, but someone called out. Miss Voss. It was Cyrus. She turned. Yes? Do you have a moment? She nodded, even though she wasn't sure. They stepped into a hallway. I've seen your work. It's impressive, Cyrus said, especially since you didn't come through the usual way. Liana blinked. Thank you. Because you're now in a high position, we may have to look into your background, your work, your family, all of it. Her voice stayed calm. I understand. Also, be careful when adding feelings to language. ASL is emotional and different. We need to make sure it stays safe. Liana's heart tightened. Are you saying I'm not good enough? Cyrus smiled politely. I'm saying that when a company grows, people look at everything closely. Then he walked away. That evening, Liana sat with Darian on the rooftop cafe of the company building. The sunset turned the sky orange. He cornered me, Liana said softly. Cyrus said they'll look into my background, even Kai. Darian frowned. That's not right. I'm not ashamed, Liana said, but it felt like a warning. Darian leaned in. This company was made to do things differently. Your work is big, it scares them. He made it sound like I'm a problem, she whispered. You're a threat, Darian said, to people who like to keep others out. If they try anything, I'll quit. Liana looked up fast. What? I'll resign, he said. You matter. You help people like my deaf nephew. People like Kai. Liana felt her throat tighten. She wasn't used to people standing up for her. It scared her more than Cyrus. Thank you, she whispered. The next day, Liana got a strange calendar invite. It said private briefing, R&D compliance review. There was no name, no room number, just the time. 4 p.m. She clicked decline. A minute later, her phone buzzed. An unknown number messaged, It's not optional. Come alone. Liana's heart raced. She went straight to Darian. He listened carefully. I'm going with you, he said. They said come alone. Then don't go. But Liana shook her head. I need to know what they're planning. If they want to push me out, I want to hear it. I'll wait outside, Darian said. At 4 p.m., Liana arrived at a quiet, unused room. Inside were Vera, Cyrus, and a man she didn't know. He had short hair and cold eyes. Liana, Cyrus said. This is Agent Silas from the Department of Information Oversight. Liana was surprised. Why is a government agent here? Silas leaned forward. Your AI is being looked at for emergency systems. That means we need to look very closely at everything. Vera spoke quickly. We're checking all people who helped build it, their data and their families. Silas took out a folder. Your brother, Kai Voss, joined some protests. He's deaf and peaceful, Liana said. Still, Silas continued, we have to see if anything could cause problems in the AI. Cyrus added, especially when feelings are involved. Liana stood up slowly. My brother isn't dangerous. I speak a language most of you don't even try to understand. If that scares you, maybe you're not making tools. Maybe you're making walls. Silas closed the folder. Cyrus looked nervous. Liana walked out. Darian was waiting. She didn't say anything. She just shook. He gently touched her wrist. You did the right thing. But in Liana's mind, one thought stayed. If they're scared of a maid who signs, what are they really hiding? 3 days later, while testing the AI, Liana noticed something strange. The voice sounded different. Not wrong, just colder. A user had signed, I don't feel safe here. Before, the AI would say, I'm scared. Now it said, this environment makes me uncomfortable. That was not the same. Fear had turned into something soft. Liana dug into the computer logs. Someone had logged in at 2:12 a.m. from a hidden account and changed the way emotions were shown. She grabbed her phone and texted Darian, Urgent. I found something. 10 minutes later, they met in an old, dusty boardroom. Liana showed him the code. They're changing how the AI feels, she said. They're making it colder. Why? Darian asked. She looked serious. If the AI doesn't show pain clearly, emergency teams might not respond properly. Courts might not hear the truth. It makes people less human. Darian's face turned dark. Someone inside is doing this. Yes, Liana said. Only someone important could have made these changes. For the next 3 days, Liana, Darian, and Alara worked in secret. Liana traced code changes. Darian looked at camera logs. Alara backed up the old data. The changes matched the day Cyrus arrived. Alara found a message between Vera and someone outside the company. One sentence stood out. Too much empathy will cause legal problems. Flatten where possible. Darian looked at Liana. We have enough. Liana nodded. Then it's time. They asked for a meeting with the company board. Liana spent the night practicing what she would say. Her hands shook as she signed the words again and again. On Friday morning, they went to the big conference room. Darian carried the laptop. Alara brought the report. Liana brought only her voice. Board members came in. Cyrus sat with his arms folded. Vera was quiet. Agent Silas was there too. Liana stood up. I want to show you something, she said. Then she signed the same sentence twice. The AI translated it 2 ways. This environment makes me uncomfortable. I'm scared. She looked at the board. Someone changed the AI. It hides strong feelings. That can hurt people who use sign language. Darian showed the reports. Alara pointed out the login. Cyrus stood. This isn't proof. Alara said, it came from your department. Vera added, we were told to make it sound nicer. By who? Darian asked. Nobody answered. Then Agent Silas stood. I've heard enough. This is serious. Liana will protect you during the audit. Cyrus looked pale. Liana spoke softly. I just want people like my sister to be heard. The meeting ended. Liana walked out with Darian. She could finally breathe. You took a big risk, he said. She smiled. So did you. Behind them, the doors closed, but Liana had changed. She wasn't a maid anymore. She was a voice they couldn't quiet. The next few days were slow but important. Government teams came in, tech experts, lawyers, and people from the Justice Department. The company that once felt strong and secret now felt like glass under a magnifying glass. Liana sat in a quiet room on the 18th floor. The room was now used for a big computer job. Her desk was the most important place where everything came together. She wore the same black shirt every day. Her hair was always neat, and she sat up straight. She looked calm and strong. Sometimes she looked at a photo stuck to her laptop. It was a picture of her mom and little sister laughing in a small garden. Liana smiled a little when she saw it. That's who she was doing all this for. One of the agents looking at her work said, I've never seen such careful work. She must have known this day would come. Liana softly replied, I didn't know this would happen, but I've lived through some of it before. In another part of the building, everything was messy and full of worry. Mr. Cyrus Vale had to leave his job. His helper also left quietly. Vera Chen didn't look at Liana anymore. She walked slowly now, like something heavy was in her heart. Alara and Darian stayed close to Liana. They helped her with all the legal and computer stuff. The 3 of them worked quietly together while the big bosses ran around trying to hide things and blame each other. But Liana didn't yell or brag. She didn't act like a hero. She just kept working, slow, calm, and kind. On Friday morning, something new happened. Liana was asked to come upstairs again, but not to the big boardroom. This time she went to a small room called the Echo Room. It used to be used for testing sounds for ads. Now it had a round table, 2 chairs, and 1 voice recorder in the middle. Agent Silas was there. He smiled a little and said, Take a seat, Liana. Across from Liana sat a woman in a navy blue jacket. She was older, with smart eyes and a strong voice. Her name was Judge Serena Dois. She used to be a lawyer and now worked on checking if computer tools were fair for everyone. I read all your work, Judge Dois said. You know this could help change the rules to make things better for people with disabilities. Liana paused. I didn't think about that, and I just thought about how my little sister signs the word hurt, and how wrong it is for a machine to say that word doesn't matter. Judge Joyce leaned back in her chair. What do you want, Miss Voss? Liana was surprised. No one had asked her that before. I want a system that can understand people who can't speak. I want it to see when someone is scared even if they don't say it out loud. I want people like my sister, who use their hands to speak, to feel understood. Agent Silas clicked off the recorder. We'll tell the Department of Justice what you said, and tomorrow, the Sloan Company will tell the public the truth. The board also voted to change the rules in a better way. And Liana, he said, your name will be shared as the person who told the truth. Liana's eyes grew big. I didn't do this for attention. That's why you were the perfect one, Judge Joyce said, standing up. The system was broken, but you didn't just say something, you helped fix it. That night, Liana walked out of Sloan Tower by herself. The wind touched her face. It felt new, not quite like freedom, but like something soft and right. Maybe it was honesty. She stopped by a flower stand and bought a small bunch, baby's breath and white lilies. When she got home, her mom was folding laundry on the couch. Her sister, Nina, was drawing on a tablet. Liana knelt in front of them and gave the flowers to her sister. For you, she signed. Nina smiled big, her eyes shiny with happy tears. She touched Liana's face gently, then made a sign with her hands. Liana hadn't seen that sign in a long time. It meant proud. Liana's heart felt full. Later, Darian came by to give her the last computer file. They sat on the fire escape together, their knees touched as the city buzzed below them. Do you know what you did? Darian asked. I told the truth, Liana said, in the only way I knew how. Darian smiled. I think the whole world finally listened. A siren passed by on the street. It got quiet again. Close to midnight, Liana's phone buzzed. It was an email from the Sloan Company board. The subject said, new job offer right away. She opened it. The first line said, we want Liana Voss to lead the new department for ethics and computer communication. You'll have full power to choose your team and how it works. Liana's hands shook, not because she was scared, but because she was amazed. She stood up and looked at herself in the hallway mirror. She didn't see the cleaning girl anymore. She didn't see someone who used to get scared when people talked to her. She saw a woman who spoke up quietly and made things better. Not by yelling, but by being clear and kind. She understood something then. Justice isn't always loud or wearing a judge's robe. Sometimes it speaks with hands, sometimes it comes in silence, but it can still change everything. That night, Liana slept peacefully. No dreams came. She didn't need them anymore, because her real life had finally become everything she dreamed of.